Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you. You get fairy dust. I get fairy dust. Amelie gets fairy dust. Okay, you get in position. You ready? Okay, here we go. This is another episode of me talking about my eating disorder recovery. And last I left off, I was freaking out in treatment because they wanted me to have fun, and I did not know how to do that. So I thought what might be helpful now, I'll just do the time. I'll pick up the timeline. So when I learned about the 12 steps in treatment, and then I continued with my eating disorder therapist, seeing her either once a week or once every other week, something like that, for a few years, for maybe about 5 years, and I struggled with relapse. Then I did a group counseling with some of the people from treatment or who had been to that same treatment center, all anorexics and bulimics. Then I did some outpatient. I mean, you know about outpatient. I did some, what do you call, aftercare. So I went to some of those meetings. So I was diligently pursuing recovery. I would go to at least 3 meetings a week. When I first left treatment, what they recommend is 90 meetings in 90 days. And I did pretty close to that. I was really lucky because in Atlanta, where I lived at the time, they had a huge recovery eating disorder situation, like a clubhouse even. AA meetings usually have something like that. But this was like, it was great. It was so many, the circle was huge, so many people. And it was very encouraging, it was great. It was really great. So there were meetings all the time. When I moved, so I moved to North Carolina and I moved to Florida, and I never found anything like that again. And I don't know if it exists still in Atlanta, but like, oh my gosh, like it's hard to find a meeting. But thank goodness now we have online meetings, so we can really go to a meeting every day if we wanted to. And if you're new in recovery, I would recommend that. I would do the 90 meetings in 90 days. That'll give you just an extra push, an extra support, extra, less feeling alone. So I really recommend it. And that one meeting every day for 90 days, like if you did that, it's very likely that would give you 90 days of sobriety, which is fucking amazing. Addicts require work to sustain our recovery. End of sentence, full stop. We require maintenance. We don't reach the end of our recovery because if we're alive, this shit still lives in our brains, So, okay. Goodness. What was I going to say? Okay, so I really think of it as a kind of disability, and I hope that's not offensive, but if I have something, we all have no issues with people who have physical disabilities. We have an understand, or like a chronic illness, or any medical issue that requires care, and attention. So, a diabetic will have to check their sugar every day. We have to check in with our sobriety every day. Like, it's just part of what we have to do. Did you get a resentment from yesterday or the day before? Yeah, you got to fix that because we don't get we addicts don't get to have resentments. Why? Because we might use over them. So we have to free ourselves of all of our resentments. We don't get to have regret because we might use over regret. We don't get to have shame. We don't get to carry shame. We have to heal that shame. We have to figure it out. Or we might use over shame. We have to heal our guilt, or we'll use over guilt. So, and let's say today, let's say yesterday, I was like, oh, I was free of all my resentments and it didn't feel guilty and I la 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 la. Well, today, some dum-dum might cross my path and I have a new resentment. Well, I got to work on that. I got to get it back to zero. And, we're not perfect and no, our resentments are the same, but, there were many years where I had, let's say 200 resentments. And it was probably not an exaggeration. There were some that I could lift immediately after I, studied them for a minute and saw like I had a part in that shenanigans. Like, oh, that I was part of that. I, played a role in that happening to me. So, boop, that's gone. And then there's some resentments that are, deep wounds and deep scars that are traumas. And we have to figure that out too. I'm not talking about forgiveness. I'm not talking about forgiveness at all. I'm just talking about, what do they say about resentments? It's the knife that's hanging, that I think is hanging over someone else's head, but it's actually hanging over mine. Or carrying a resentment is like giving someone else poison. Like, how dare they? They're so dumb. I can't believe they did that. This is so stupid. I'll never forget. Giving them poison that the brain or the psyche thinks that, but it's actually we're carrying the poison. Blah, 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 blah. That's poison in me. I can't do poison. I'm sober from poison too. So it requires maintenance, and it will require maintenance for the rest of my life. It may not look the same. The kind of maintenance I needed in the beginning was a lot more meetings than I have now. But if I relapse, guess who's going to 90 meetings in 90 days? Because I got to get my shit back. So this, and to think that we're pathetic because we need this, or to think that we're, less than or whatever because we need all this, I don't see it any different than a diabetic needing to check their sugar every day and then finding out whether they need to take insulin or not. I got to check in with myself every day. And I do that to the best of my ability. Is it perfect? No. But when shit starts going down, or if I start thinking about my, addiction more, or, what I want to do with my drug of choice, that's a sign that my maintenance has slipped and I need to take a look at it. I need to take a look. Okay, so lots of meetings, lots of recovery, I went to another treatment center, but it was woo-woo. It was my therapist put it on. And it was fine. It was feminist shit. I mean, it's not shit, but it was like, and that was cool, and I loved that. And I know that it healed other things in me, some of my, religion baggage or whatever, like, and having an understanding of what it means to be a woman in our society and how that might be different, or, different than a man's version of living in society, and how that impacted my food, beauty standards and shit like that. So there was a lot of that, and I found it absolutely fascinating because I, as you know, love shit like that. I can talk about symbolism all day. I can talk about social psychology all day. I can talk about, spirituality or philosophy. I can even talk about feminism all day. It's highly fascinating. I have a women's studies minor, so, but I didn't see the results in my food. I didn't see the results in my food from stuff like that. Again, it wasn't a waste of time. I'm sure there were things in there that were healed, but I didn't really see a difference in how much I used or not. And then I went to one more treatment, and it was not great. It wasn't, there was not, the first one that I've spent a lot of time talking about, that was absolutely a magical experience and just huge, made huge impacts and changes. The last treatment wasn't really like an Elizabeth led treatment. Those other two treatments were, this wasn't oh, I need to go to treatment. Like, it was very much of a consequence from my husband. This boy that I live with now, he 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 didn't. It's it was his boundary. It was his boundary that he did not want me to fucking die, and that if I couldn't stop, that he needed to see me do something drastic to make myself stop. Like he was in this with me. He wasn't going anywhere, but he wasn't going to stand for me to slowly kill myself. And so it was more medicalized, and it wasn't warm and fuzzy. It wasn't, but the consequence stuck. And so I don't really have that many memories of it. I just, and I don't think it was for very long. But anyway, it's important for me to acknowledge that I did go to the treatment 3 different times, and with varying degrees of success. Just like when you go to therapy, like some therapists will be more helpful than other therapists for whatever reason. And so I recommend it. Because let's say even that those other two, the other two were meaningless as far as my eating disorder recovery. Let's say that the other 2 treatments were like nothing. The fact that I took action and did it was all that I needed from that. My husband basically did like an intervention with me, and he's like, fuck that, fuck your addiction. Not fuck you, I love you, I adore you, but we're a family that will solve their problems, and if you can't solve this problem, we need to put you in a place that's gonna help you solve your fucking problem. He didn't say fucking, I'm thinking that. It was complete kindness and love, and I truly was, so even if it was just that, from that particular experience, it meant the world to me, because this is a person who would do, I got to see somebody who would love me like that, who would hold me accountable because he loved me and he did not want to lose me. That's a lot of fucking love. And I got to see it in action. So I see every single thing I did, I see all of those things as deposits into my future, deposits and investments into my future, savings accounts, like every meeting, even if it was lame, or the leader was lame, or it was like everybody was making excuses, whatever happens, like there's some meetings that are better than others. That's just the way that it is. Going still mattered. Taking an action step still mattered. One of the things Susan Peirce Thompson teaches, the neuroscientist who also has a food addiction, is that I got to watch myself have integrity. Because with food and how I treated food, how I hid food, how I binged on food, how I purged food, how I stole food, how I did all these, how I made endless promises to the people in my life and to my fucking self and broke them all. I had zero integrity. And you know me, you know how much I feel, how important integrity is to me. There were years there where I was in recovery and, sponsoring even, or, whatever. And I would say, oh, integrity is important to me. But then I had this other life where it wasn't important at all. My word to myself was bullshit. I'm not gonna eat that, and then 5 minutes later I'm eating it. I'm not gonna binge again. 5 minutes later I'm binging. I'm never purging again. 5 minutes later I'm purging. That's someone who doesn't have integrity. That's someone who doesn't have integrity. And I don't get to say I'm a person that has integrity because I'm nice and I do nice things and I stand up for what's right and all this. I don't get to say that while I have zero integrity with food. It doesn't work that way. And so by watching myself do all these positive actions that, again, an unfortunate metaphor for those of us who have eating disorder and binge eating disorder specifically, or really any of them, who's going to win? Is it going to be my recovery, or is it going to be the disease? Dis-ease, for those of you that language, disease language isn't fits or is button pushing, but it's still, we can say that somebody who's using is not at ease with themselves or with life. So it's dis-ease. Who's gonna win? The one we feed, the one we nourish, that's the dog that's gonna win. And so all those years, crying on the way to meetings, not wanting to go, binging after the meetings, doesn't matter. Every single thing I did has led me to where I am now. Has led me here, talking to you about fighting eating disorders, sharing my experience, strength, and hope with the world, telling on myself, telling the deepest, darkest. And I thank her so much. She thought, the past me, she thought, what a fucking waste. This isn't helping. I'm not better. It wasn't like, I'm in recovery and I'm going to my meeting. No, I fucking hated every minute of it, almost every minute of it. It was hard. It was a slog. It was challenging, but I fucking did it. And thank God I did, because my attitude about it was, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It didn't matter what my attitude was. It was beside the point. If I'm knitting a scarf and I hate knitting the scarf, at the end, I'm gonna have a fucking scarf. And at the end, I have fucking recovery. I am sober as fuck today, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. Without my favorite thing in the world, all the time, without my drug. I'm the happiest I've ever fucking been. My life has never been more magical. I fucking love myself. And if it hadn't been for that girl who didn't love herself, who thought all this shit is so stupid, who thought other people needed to do this but not me, who thought, oh, those people are so sick, and then here I am, binging and purging 50 times a day. But they're, just the inner saboteur, addiction thoughts, disease thoughts, addictive voice, whatever, just was a constant and convinced me of a lot of bullshit. But it doesn't matter, because this bitch got her recovery. And you will too. So your attitude about your recovery doesn't matter. Just do the fucking work. Just take the action. Come to find out, the most magical thing is taking action. Bar none. Bar none, bar none, bar none. Take action. Deposit something in your recovery today. Make an investment. Who cares if it doesn't work today? Who cares if you go to a meeting and the rest of the day you're using? Who fucking cares? It adds up over time. If you use a tool today, whatever, make a deposit in your recovery. I'm gonna call my sponsor today. I have already made an outreach to somebody else in recovery today. I have to make my deposits, or I'm going to lose my sobriety, and I do not want to lose it. So is recovery annoying? 100%. Does it lead to a magical life? 100%. It does. It's in my experience. This is just my experience, strength, and hope. And I have seen it in other people. Those who took the action, that made all the difference. So I hope that's helpful. Love you. Bye.